Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reacts where today we have ourselves a track from an act named Lord Frederick Russell II titled the Adobe Firefly exhibit 9 of Cups Reversed, or IX of Cups Reversed. And if we switch over to here, for a little bit of background on this is going to be an interesting video. This is actually a little bit of a historical moment for me because it's actually... I have been contacted to review this on behalf of someone who's gotten a previous review by me done. When I was a lot younger, with the Insight, the music demo, I'll put a link to this in the description so you can check it out when I was like really, really young. Back in the days when I was probably about 20 kgs lighter and had less of an idea of what I was doing than I do now. Yeah, I reviewed their music. It was the Insight, the music demo. It was an album of theirs that I listened through. And we're going to be reviewing more of their music today. So it's nice to return to their stuff and we're going to check this track out from start till finish. And we're going to hear what we think. And we're going to be giving this song an overall score out of 10 at the end, but yeah, let's go, let's do it. Immediately quite trippy, isn't it? Dissonant textures there. I mean, it's a lot to take in, isn't it? So I think I need to make a decision at this halfway point. When I give a song ranking, I give it out of 10 on different musical criteria. And I need to ascertain how things have been done and whether this is deliberate or due to a lack of knowing what to do. Because if it's a deliberate sound decision to make things so overwhelming like this, it's arguable that the effect is successful in that regard, you know. mean, it's relentless. Reverse Cups album on the way. See me at Endless Night Vampire events or Bike Club for updates. So there is an audience for this, I think, given it has a few thousand views and 100 likes. We're gonna talk about this track more in the conclusion. And so welcome to the conclusion, where we discuss this track from an act named Lord Frederick Russell II, titled the Adobe Firefly exhibit, IX Cups Reverse. Now, apparently they are working on some sort of... So apparently they make music for augmented reality, and they're working on an app as well that kind of... Because they've got synesthesia. I'm sorry if you heard the car then. They've got synesthesia, so they see music a little bit differently. So when I talk about the score for this track being 5 out of 10, I mean it with all the kindness in the world, and I'm going to explain why I've given this track a firm 5 out of 10 across the board. I'm not sure what this track is about. I think it is about the interaction between themselves and another. You get a feeling that that person is basically like, wash me out like a wave. There's lots of lyrics about them being sort of mistreated by this person, or the dreams being shattered by this person. And there's sort of like, but at the same time they talk about how they are their destiny, you know, they're their heart, and they only thought less of me. So you get the impression that potentially they talked about not liking their songs either. It's basically they're working through the severe kind of connection that they have to this person, the feelings of being thrown away, the difficulties with that. I mean, anticipating that they're going to break, almost like expecting that the person singing this to be broken by the decisions that they're making there. It just sounds like a toxic relationship and situation in general. Or maybe they've been trying to make it work no matter what, but it's just not been handled well. And it's just a really sort of intense situation. You know, they talk about calling them from the darkest abyss, like when they're needed, but then sort of throwing them away afterwards. So basically, I think the overall summation of what I've discussed is what this is about. There's more to it. I just need a few more listens to get all the information, because this being more of a sort of an overall analysis-based review, I need to be careful here. I think that the way it's spoken, the reason I gave the vocals a 5 is because it's balancing the functionality and mood of it with the actual quality of a vocal performance. So when I listen to this, it's clearly going for this kind of angsty, edgy, uncomfortable, chaotic, kind of like grimy, kind of like glitchy vibe that I think the vocal style suits there. Barely being able to hear the words in this could infer a sense of like, oh, we're struggling to get these words out because of our feelings or what we're going through. So me giving it any less than a 5 is not a smart idea, because it might be the desired effect, in which case it is effective. And I think there is room for music which is not super clear with their vocals if it allows them to sort of have the desired effect. If we had been inconsistent with it, I think it ironically would have scored lower, because then it's like we don't know how to make it suit with that sort of atmosphere and environment, but we managed to keep it consistent across the board. There were some moments where things came down and you got words clearly, but a lot of it was soaked. And there were some interesting melodies that were sung within it and some overdubs there. And when you heard them, they either were diatonic or they deliberately were sort of like chromatic, or kind of more kind of like, it sounded like we were struggling. It almost sounded like a theatrical performance there. It sounded like we were genuinely having a rough time getting the words out. And there's like this kind of dragging feeling, this sensation from the vocals here that really does kind of make you think, this person's really having a rough time, which is why I gave it a 5. It's that there is merit to some of the ideas and concepts here. But if I was to compare it to the absolute worst performance I've ever heard vocally to the best, I feel like it's mid, the way that while it may not be super virtuosic, it still works well for the style. This is a 6-minute 44 track. where it's an intense experience for a lot of it. There are some really harsh textures in here that are very difficult for people who are uninitiated to get through. It's very confrontational in its approach here. There's a lot to sort of absorb around the stereo field and the frequency spectrum, but from a compositional perspective, if we just go back to the start, you said you said this is what it is, but this isn't what it's supposed to be. And it starts quietly, and then it just starts, it's got a very sort of menacing tone to it. So I suppose if I was generous, I could probably give it, I was going to give it a higher structure score, but then I was also thinking, yeah, but you just have that bit at the end. And it's okay structurally. It's like just an atmosphere where it is just a mood more than anything else. So again, it's one of those situations where you balance out having an incredibly well-structured song with lots of twists and turns, or simply being through composed but having enough stuff to keep you going. But the way that it's put together being very sort of like intense the entire time maybe to a detriment, it simply, being chaotic but in a way that has failed. But it's also that I go to any part of the song and it's just so brutal on the ears, and it's just visceral because it's like it sounds unpleasant. And often with music you'll have this resolution that's reached after a certain amount of an unpleasant nature, but within this it's just brutal and hard the entire time. Individually, if you remove the composite, you have lots of individual cool ideas. Like some of the drum grooves we have here are fantastic with 1/4-16 hi-hats, kicks, and snares. There's some interesting industrial elements there. And the 808s are kind of cool with the portamento working between those bass notes, those root notes, and then the upper octaves. There's these interesting pads which sound dissonant or work within the tritones of the key signature. And there's also some kind of cool, some glitchy sounds. Like I'm not averse to there being those more glitchy textures, like those electronic synthetic parts there where they kind of beep and kind of click and stuff like that. I'm not averse to that. I like my heavy stuff. But there's also just this droning throughout the piece where it just sounds like I'm having a manic episode or a psychosis, where it's just whoa, and it's got like this, it's pushed with the gain and distortion and drive on it. It's visceral and it's just too much. Like I was going to increase the structure score to like a 6 or something, simply because of the more gentle finish we had at the intro we had being more gentle, and then building up over time with You Said Is What It Is, and it almost being kind of like an unleashing of things. But if I remove the kind of work I'm trying to do to justify a higher score there, it simply kind of feels mid. And again, I think it scores a 5 with structure as well as everything else, in part because it creates it represents itself, it shows you what it is, and it's unashamed in that respect. But I'm not sure what the key signature is. I'm not sure what the theme would be. Ultimately, this is a track where it's simply trying to create this world where it's the insight into what they're going through in this situation, and it's awful to listen to because of the fact that you imagine someone having to go through that pain. To feel that much pain, for that to come out of music. In one sense, I'm very thankful that we've been able to hear this from Lord Frederick Russell II. I know that they're probably not going to be very happy with this review, this feedback, because I am being honest, but I'm also not being particularly gentle about it. But it's just this, I keep trying to find moments of respite, and they just aren't it. It's just 6.5 minutes of just very angry music. It's very angry music, and I feel like if you were to have an album of this, it would just be far too much. It would be difficult to listen to. It's music that, because of the textures and timbres, the lack of trying to play nice for, not even from like, I'm not even talking like, because I like my grindcore, I like my kind of like heavy dubstep, I like my pick squirrels and stuff like that. I like my heavy stuff. I don't mind progressive stuff, avant-garde stuff. And this is very experimental, and I appreciate that we're trying to do something different. Having a lack of a root note or like a focal point or like something for this track to hold on to, aside from the frustration, the misery that we feel with the situation, it's just very difficult. I just wish that we'd had something going on throughout this at certain intervals that we could go back to. Something where it was like, okay, we've gone on this massive tangent but we're back to a theme, or we're back to this one bit where it's kind of moderate. It's not unrepentant. And to be fair, I suppose, structurally, it does build up over time. But even when it's quieter, it's got this sense of discomfort that even from the beginning, even if it's quieter, like for someone who's listened to thousands of tracks, this is an exception to the rule. This is just quite a bit. So ultimately, I feel like this feedback has been pretty kind of like, I suppose the biggest bit of point of feedback I could say is I would like, if we were going to make an album out of this, to have points in these songs where even if we're okay and comfortable and happy with what we're making, just something where there's just a little bit of consistency for the listener to kind of sit with and be okay with. It's something where we can just kind of, how do I describe it? Because if there's no safe harbor within a track, even with the heaviest, most brutalest stuff, no point where there's just a bit of silence or like kind of quietness, no point where we have a break. It's just an album of that would be it's just really tough. But then of course I've got to bear in mind that the world does not revolve around me as a music reviewer, and there's probably people that are really into this kind of music, and if that's the case, that's awesome. Just for me personally, subjectively, I have to be honest, this is probably not one of my favorite tracks, and even though I appreciate and respect the style and sort of the vibe that we're going for here, there's just too much of it that is difficult for me to really enjoy. The studio recording, mixing and mastering, just finishing off, because again, thematically, I'm not sure what this is. Effectively, it's just trying to create again that sort of like, oh, that world, that universe, that sort of surrounds what Lord Frederick Russell is going through with the Ix of Cups. I'd probably need more context for it. The studio production, you could hear things individually sometimes, in different bits. The music surrounds you in the headphones. Clearly, there's been attention to try and get everything in there, but it's just, and there's dynamic range. It builds slowly, but it's just so harsh. And it just gets so loud, and things are so pushed near the end that it just becomes it's just not pleasant. I think especially with this track being as long as it is, you get the feeling, the understanding of what they're trying to communicate by 3 minutes, let alone 7. So it's a firm 5 out of 10 for me. I feel like I've spoken what I wanted to say about it. Thank you and I wish them the best of luck for the album, and hopefully they don't take the feedback too harshly. I don't mean it personally. It's just my opinion on the music. But thank you for watching my review of this track from an act named Lord Frederick Russell II, titled Adobe Firefly Exhibit Ix of Cups Reversed, or 9 of Cups Reversed. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go show them some love via the various social medias and the YouTube page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as it either help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I will catch you in the next SP Reacts. Spiderhands out.